Well, good afternoon. You know, as Joel mentioned, I have been very involved in the United Way, as you all know, as chair and with the inaugural council. How many women in the room were in the inaugural council for the WLN? I know many on this table. So, you know, I can remember this idea of women talking to women and really how powerful that could be. And it was a hit from the beginning. Anyone here at the first event was Mary Sammons, the prior CEO, you know, at Rite Aid. And she was our first speaker, and I think we really knew at that point we had really struck a chord that this is kind of what women were looking for. So I'm certainly very proud to be up here and to be one of the speakers for one of these conversation events. So my topic today is about seizing opportunities in your professional, personal, and philanthropic life. And I'm saying it that way because that's how I view my life. As Joel said, I am a woman, a mother, a wife, a daughter, a leader, an executive, a mentor, and a member of this community. And so I have, like many of you, a demanding career, as Joel said, over 30 years, a very busy life, you know, at home with a spouse and 2 children, and it seems a slew of animals that come in and out of our lives over the years. And I play an active role in the community, as you said, but I'm often asked about, you know, what about my career path, and what advice could I have for others? And so as I thought about that, one of the things that comes to mind is this common thread of creating and seizing opportunities. I once read somewhere that there are 2 things that make the biggest difference in your personal and professional life: the books that you read and the people you meet. And so what I'm going to share with you today is really my personal philosophy that I've gained through my business experience, but also through all the books I've read and all the people I've talked to, including many of you here in this room. So to start us off, a show of hands, how many of you would take an opportunity if it was laid out in front of you with clear direction and defined value? Show of hands. Keep your hands up. How many times has that happened to anyone in this room? Exactly. And that's the challenge, right? Because opportunities just don't always appear that clearly. But I'm here to tell you they are out there with the right mindset, focus, attitude, and openness. So what I'd like to explore today with you is what's holding you back. So I don't mean to start out with a provocative statement, but I will. It starts with you. You know, personal and professional development is really each person's responsibility. I see this quandary, especially when I talk with women who are seeking career opportunities in their professional life. And I think too many times we look to our company, our boss, our mentors, even our family sometimes, to show us that next step. So much so that sometimes I think we've absolved ourselves from that responsibility. And as a result, I believe our minds are not as open as they should be to the possibilities. I think we're too mired sometimes in this defined way of how we see our future. Sometimes I think we have blinders on how we expect our lives to turn out. You know, we graduate college with this plan of our career and what our path is going to be. And we think about our careers as climbing that corporate ladder, vying for that next step on the rung. At our annual performance review, we invariably ask our managers, tell me what I need to do to get promoted. So instead, I'd like to challenge you to think of your career progression as something more like a career lattice versus a career ladder. So be open to the fact that sometimes your next step to climb might not be a step up, right? It might be a step over, maybe a lateral move to gain a different set of skills to maybe put you on a different path. Maybe even at times a step down, and that's okay. Sometimes circumstances come that say that's really the appropriate next step for you. The right choice as far as your next step is not always static. It can change over time, and it can change based upon the circumstances in your life. There are many more options that you can imagine if you have an open mind and you're really willing to think about the possibilities. Consider development not so much as your next job or position, but in terms of development of skill sets, perhaps where you have gaps or skills that you want to develop. Think of it as an investment in yourself. As Jules said, I started my career as a CPA in one of the Big 8 public accounting firms right out of college. I left after 7 years as a senior manager to make a career change into private industry. I've been both a CFO and a president of 2 different organizations in related yet different industries. I've held 3 different executive positions at Highmark, and am now, not president, but regional vice president in charge of central Pennsylvania and the Lehigh Valley markets. My point in saying this is that life doesn't always come at you in a straight line. Sometimes it's often more about navigating S-curves. And things don't always work out as planned, and that's okay. Opportunities and choices can appear if you're open to them. In discussing this topic with a colleague of mine, she said the following: "The one aha moment that sticks with me came in my 30s when I realized I had to be in charge of finding opportunities in life. Up until then, personal and professional opportunities seemed boundless. Great people, jobs, and chances were always coming into my life. Now it was work to find them. In our 40s, the approach is different. Those opportunities are still there, but we have to be proactive and make them happen. They're not coming to us. We also have to be more selective because our priorities have changed. I no longer care if I have 10 volunteer committees listed on my resume, but what I do care about is that when I choose to volunteer, I can make a difference." So that brings me to the second reason I see on why we do not choose and seize opportunities. We simply don't have the time. Being open to opportunities kind of flies in the face, if you will, of our fast-paced and sometimes frenzied lives. Who has the time? Bridget Schultz, a journalist with the Washington Post and author of a book, Overwhelmed, Work, Love, and Play When No One Has the Time, coined the word time confetti. So how many of you have probably had days like this? Days where time is scattered, fragmented, and downright exhausting. Days where you're always doing more than one thing at a time and not feeling like you're doing any one of them particularly well. Entire hours evaporated doing stuff that needs to get done, but once done, you can't really call what you did, and you're not really sure why it was so important. And so how do we counteract this force that seems to sometimes take us over? And so I use 2 principles, prioritization and focus. One very smart leader I had about 20 years ago once told me, "You will never have enough time to accomplish everything on your list, but you need to find the time to do the most important ones." Hard words to hear for those of us that get that great satisfaction from checking items off our to-do list. But unfortunately, once we check items off, invariably ones come to the bottom of the list and just get added on. So prioritization is a key. And so many say, well, how do I do that? Help me prioritize. So what advice I can say is what I do. I think each of you has the power to determine what are the most important things to you in your life. So I suggest starting with a high-level framework that considers your core values and beliefs, from which then you can evaluate priorities. So this requires self-exploration, requires making choices, but if you do this, you're able to set a benchmark against which all your subsequent daily decisions can be made. So, for example, the framework I use that I'll share with you is that relationships will always take priority over material things. That's my unique framework. So if a friend wants to stop by and talk, I say yes, despite the house not being picked up after my daughter had a sleepover yesterday with 2 friends, right? But here's the key. You can't then beat yourself up afterwards that your friends saw your house was a mess. You have to really, if you use this properly, the framework gives you that mental out. Because you've already can recall the decision you made and why you made it. The fact that keeping, in this case, relationships a priority, and so you forgive yourself the rest. But this does require focus. I think you'd all agree that we could probably all find so much more time in our schedule if we could focus better. And I think, especially for women, we probably let two things get in the way. Number one, we allow too much mental chatter in our brains. I see a lot of heads nodding. Number two, we multitask too much. About a decade ago, I'm going to say multitasking, many women were proud of that, right? We wore that as a badge of honor, that you could multitask. I stand here to tell you, stop doing it. By definition, by doing more than one thing, you're not doing anything particularly well. And so studies have even shown that if you have a singular focus on a task at hand, you yield a better result and you actually save time. So I encourage you all to set priorities, focus your time each day, whether it's at work or home or in the community, or whatever matters to you. But it has to matter to you. And be resolute. The last thing I think that keeps us from being open to opportunities is fear. So let's face it, taking on something new is scary, right? It can be seen as risky. It's a lot easier not having to think about change. Change involves making decisions. But you have to understand that, in fact, not making a decision is making a decision, right? And so in our world today of this dynamic change, I like to say that we all need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Reframe the paradigm. View change as exciting. Stop trying to fight the old and embrace the new and believe in the possibilities. In her book, The Soul of Money, Lynn Twist, who's a veteran global activist and fundraiser, states, the conversations we have with ourselves and with others, the thoughts that grip our attention, has enormous power over how we feel, what we experience, and how we see the world in that moment. So I offer to you, change the conversation with yourself and take control. I remember back almost 10 years ago when I was being asked to be part of this new women's affinity group with the United Way. I was at a very busy time in my life. My career was demanding, my spouse was traveling, I had 2 young daughters at home. How was I possibly going to fit this in? But I thought about the opportunity to meet so many other women that had a lot of vested interest in the community and in business, and I went to the first meeting, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. My involvement in the community over the past decade, whether it's through the United Way or the WLN, has been really one of the most rewarding experiences, and it has so enriched my life. And when I think about the WLN and how it started, a group of women thinking about this opportunity where we could gather together, like-minded, with a passion for the community, to work together, make a difference, inspire others, I'm really proud to say that we're like 800 strong now. And so make no mistake, we play an important role in this community. As part of the WLN, we are an inspiration to others. And as part of the largest affinity group with the United Way, we have an important role to play right now, advancing the mission of the United Way. As many of you are aware, how many attended a focus group or completed a survey regarding the strategic planning process? Almost 2,000 people joined in that effort. But it took a very comprehensive look about what are the needs in this community. And from this work, at the United Way, we now understand the many, many factors that are changing in the capital region. And we've talked about this, so many times here at the WLN and in this setting. Far too many residents still lack the basic building blocks that we see right here across the stage: health, education, income, basic needs for a quality life. I'll give you a few statistics. In Dauphin, Cumberland, Perry counties, we still have some alarming statistics. 1 in 7 children live in poverty. 1 in 7 young people don't graduate from high school. The income gap continues to grow and the middle class is shrinking. The needs continue to increase while government resources are decreasing. And from a health standpoint, Over 35% of adults are obese, and 17% of children are obese. These are really significant issues, and we need to find some sustainable solutions. And so to do this, we are moving the mission of United Way forward through this idea of collective impact, understanding that there's no one organization that can solve all these issues facing the community, but together, through collaboration, we really can make a difference. We have important work to do, and we need all the bright minds in this room to help. In fact, in our next Conversations event in October, it will serve as a community conversation around this idea of how can we further the collective impact in the community. And so it's ironic when I think about 10 years ago, when I thought I was at my limit, could do no more, I found room to do more things through United Way and through the Women's Leadership Network, and my life has been so enriched because of it. So it goes back to taking control of your personal and professional growth, setting priorities around a framework that's consistent with your authentic you, your beliefs, your values, and then allowing yourself to focus and face down fear. So I encourage each of you to find your passion and get engaged. When you think about it, each day is really a gift of a new day, really a chance to start over, to set your priorities, to make someone smile, to make a friend, to find more clarity in your life. And so I invite any one of you, love to hear from you about what your roadmap is to the future and where your personal journey is going to take you. Thank you.